Alright, step number one, you're gonna want to break your goddamn wrist. I'm talking every morning you wake up, you no remorse, you reel back and... The two main topics that we will be covering today are showmanship, which kind of directly correlates to musicality, and also use of space. I will be touching just a little bit on whips and flails, trying to make them a little bit more polished, make them look a little bit better, some tips. If you haven't seen my previous tutorial, please go check it out. I'll leave a link somewhere. And I will also be covering a little bit on my anti-flail patterns. First topic is showmanship and musicality. My background in this is the fact that I was a huge theater kid in high school. Making an ass out of myself was my character, my persona. Whether it was a normal conversation with people or doing whatever. I just loved getting laughs out of people, doing sight gags, all that kind of stuff. So flailing my arms and like moving away like that, it was who I was. So translating that to light shows wasn't very difficult for me. What I did was I just listened to massive amounts of music and I tried to do just funky dances to everything, including like classical, jazz, rap, pop punk, you know, just dancing in front of the mirror actually made a huge difference for me. Just because I was able to have the muscle memory to take those moves and just kind of put them into a light show where I'll be starting a show and I'll be just like dancing and then all of a sudden I get all serious. Showmanship is what you can do physically that isn't technically a gloving move per se, but it still translates in the person's head. So doing things like wiping off a sweat, brushing off some dust, popping a collar, doing a little tisk-tisk, threatening to kill the person, you know, normal conversation kind of stuff. It plays a little bit into it. Another thing to keep in mind is keep your moves simple. There was one show I remember, a guy, he liked doing animations, but way too much. Like, he was doing a bird, and then he broke the bird off and was doing something behind his back, but my focus was on his hand that was the bird, because I'm like, what the hell happens to the bird? Like, what is going on? It didn't translate well, and I kind of lost my focus until he brought everything back in front of me, and then I was like, oh, okay. So keeping your moves simple like that, small things, just wiping a sweat on the drop, doing one of these, you know, keeping moves simple makes the clarity a little bit better, makes the viewer understand what you're doing. That's probably the most important thing, because if the viewer doesn't know what you're doing, then you're lost, essentially. You're just doing your own thing and it doesn't work. Because it's not about what you do, it's how the person receiving the show views it. Because you can clarify it all you want, but by then the show is over and they're already like, oh. Keeping moves simple, keeping them clean, keeping them on beat is very, very important. So that is topic number one. Topic number two, use of space. You have all this space, you're gonna want to use it. Use of space. It's in the title. Use your goddamn space. One thing to keep in mind is that it's important, not always correct, but it is important to keep in mind that tech and whips should be kept in close proximity, because whips are meant to fill the person's vision, and tech is meant to be viewed cleanly, very close in front. And then flails and tuts usually are kept back here, so every move is visible. Just talking about clearly what the viewer sees and everything like that. Strictly off of that basis, those four things are split between that perspective. One thing I like to keep in mind, because I am a very whip and flail heavy glover, is that I tend to keep my flails up front pretty small, and then out here keep them pretty big. Now look at the radius itself of my flail. It's consistent. So the viewer literally sees this circle out here and it's the same circle, you know what I mean? So like, take a look. So I'm filling it up, look it up, look it up. So just keeping that kind of principle in mind, for me, has helped me a lot. The other thing to keep in mind is where the viewer's focus is. A lot of times people are just kind of looking off, feeling the music, just reacting off of the sounds alone, which is awesome. That's how it should be. You should just feel it out. But at the same time, some people that do that aren't focusing on what the viewer sees, so their focus is kind of broken apart. There are many illusions that you can do to a person when you're giving a show, such as if you were to do like a flail pattern out here, you can click switch your modes behind your back while the person is focusing there, and then you can do the opposite on the other hand. It's little things like that that you can include that make your use of space clutch as hell. Another thing is that I see a lot of people tend to keep their moves way too low or way too high. More often they keep it really high, so like a finger roll will look like this to a viewer, and that shouldn't be the case. Everything should be right in front of the person's face so they can see it. It doesn't matter what you see as a glover because you're the one giving the show. They're the ones seeing the show. So practicing in the mirror is very important because I've never actually seen anyone go too far to the right or to the left because you can kind of turn your head like that. But going up and down is way different because some moves are done up here, but there's like a platform here that prevents you from seeing all the intricate stuff that's happening above it. So keeping that level, keeping it at eye level is super important. Using your space correctly, you can manipulate the person's vision and make illusions out of it. A lot of times I'll do a flail pattern and I'll do another one here with the other hand and kind of break it apart and then take it and put it elsewhere. So using your space creatively is a good way to kind of get comfortable with what the viewer sees. A lot of times if you do have a fisheye camera, that will simulate what a viewer would see. Not the best way, but it's the closest way to get to like what a person sees through a light show. So watching yourself on video helps a lot, because if you find yourself going too far in one direction, you can call that out through a video and you can fix it. So use your space wisely and use your space correctly, keeping all the intricate stuff close and all the big stuff out here. Because some people will do tuts right in front of your goddamn face, and it doesn't look good. But making sure you know that difference between what moves belong close and what moves belong far away. Keeping that in mind. The last kind of point I wanted to go over is whips and flails. Okay, let me make this very clear so everyone understands. The reasons my flails are so fucking wobbly-gook is because I've been gloving for 6 years. Ever since day one, I've been flailing my wrists like this. Over the 6-year period of me gloving every single day, 365 days a year, for 6 years, this is the result. It's good looking flails, because I've been working at it for 6 years. There is no tactic, no magic pill, no magic stretch that will make your flails look brand new from day one of trying it. There is nothing like that. You need to practice it. Unless you break your fucking wrists, but you're gonna be in too much pain in order to do a flail. Okay, so practice doing it. There's no stretch that makes them do that. I have never, not even for tuts, I have never stretched my wrists ever. And they look like this. Like, it's practice, guys. As much as you hate hearing it, it's practice that makes the difference. Moving on, the way I polished my whips is that I realized where the whip looks good in a viewer's face. Like I said previously, keeping them close is kind of key. But also, if you're finding your whips a little like cutting short, slow it down. Because not only will your whips look better in that case because each light trail will be playing off of the one before it, it'll look like a nice circle, but also because you'll see where your whips are failing. So if you're cutting too far to the side, open your palm out more. So slowing it down, really catching your eye to what you're doing and what you want to change. There's no way to like cover an entire basis of whip questions that people have. It's just seeing what you're doing wrong and trying to fix it. But slowing down is the way to see it. Because if you slow it down and then you go fast and you're doing something completely different, you gotta change it up. For flails, it's practice. Make them look good. Gotta practice them. There's no secret. There's nothing else I can tell you. You just need to practice. But if your wrists are nice and loose and they look pretty good, I will teach you guys how to do the anti-flail spin. I'm sure most of you aren't going to be very comfortable doing it on the first day, and that's totally fine, because this is a trick that I learned doing off of like kind of like a mind illusion that my sister taught me. Like another one was an example, like you would take 2 pens and you draw a square with one hand and a circle with the other. I almost drew a triangle, and your mind can't do it. But the one that taught me how to do this is that you take your 2 fingers, you put them together, and you rotate one forward and one back. Now, depending on what you're comfortable with, you can move the other one forward and the other one back, and that'll teach you how to do it, because eventually you'll incorporate your entire hand. You know, weaving through and making them look good is just a matter of practice. It's practice and dedication towards your craft that make it what it is. I'm going to try to teach how to do the flower petal flail pattern. I'm sorry if it doesn't translate well, it's kind of hard to teach. So, keeping the anti-flail in mind, this is the move that you're going to be doing. It's just one hand going in one direction and the other hand in the other, alright? So what it is your hands are basically doing this, but keeping that rotational value. You know what I mean? So they're going to be rotating like this, but your arms themselves are going to be moving in a circular motion. Typically, they should be moving in the same direction. I'm not sure if... Well, I just learned a new move. Fuck. Anyway, keeping the basic. They should be moving in either a clockwise or a counterclockwise direction. Depending on who you are, depending which hand is dominant, you might have to practice going in the other direction. So don't give up if you're devoted to learning this trick. Oftentimes, if you're learning to skateboard, you might be starting regular, but in reality, you're goofy. That's kind of the same principle. Start your anti-flail, and then slowly you separate it, so it's still doing it, but your arms are separated. And then what you want to do is move your arms in a circle, and even the other way, which is actually kind of harder, but it's a huge mindfuck. It really is, and I'm actually very surprised I was able to get comfortable enough to do it with lights on and make them look good. It's kind of the result of having many years of knowing just how to do this move, and eventually I just got tired of doing this in a person's face for 5 seconds at a time, and I just kind of branched off of it. Again, with practice, you can make anything look good, and anything you can do, you can put wherever the fuck you want, which is something that I covered in my older tutorial. Bottom line through the entire tutorial process is you gotta practice it. As much as you guys want to know what the secret is or what the magical solution to anything is, it's practice. That is all I have for today. I hope you guys learned something. I surely did. But until next time, my name is Materia. You guys are beautiful, and I'll see you later.